Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. My name is Diana Mayfield, and I'm the head of content here at Design Files. And we are back with day 3 of eDesign Business Building Week. Today, we're diving into short-term rental design with Audra Slinkey. Audra has helped to train and empower over 10,000 design and staging small businesses since 2006 through her accredited and award-winning online courses at Home Staging Resource. Audra is an Airbnb host and designer as well, and is most excited about this fast-growing design niche. Welcome, Audra.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and so tell me, where are you joining us from?
I am in San Diego,
I
California.
love it. What's the temperature there today?
Oh my gosh, we're finally getting heat, so it's so nice, but it's getting warm. It's like 77 degrees.
Beautiful. California coast is the best. West Coast, West Coast. Anyways, we are going to dive into, speaking of coastal and vacation
Yes.
centric places, we are going to dive into short-term rental design. So I'm actually going to hand it over to you for this wonderful workshop. We're going to just dive right in, and then I will come back for Q&A at the end.
All right, sounds good. I'll just take it away. Thanks so much for being here. And this is a different format. I'm usually used to a kind of open chat room. So I can't quite see it, but I'm going to be keeping it as interactive as possible for you. So feel free to, chime in on the chat when I ask questions and whatnot. We're going to talk about vacation rental design expertise. What are you going to learn? We're going to talk about understanding the short-term market, why this market needs you, kind of some statistics about it, how adding this lucrative service actually benefits your business, because you got to understand why this would work for you. Why should you add this kind of service? How to get started. Trade and retail shopping and design hot tips, like what to shop for and why. How to crush this service, make lots of money. Who doesn't want that? And the easiest way to market it. So we have so much to go over. I'm going to talk fast. What I always recommend is keep your phone handy to maybe take some photos or screenshots of slides if you need. I've got like 80 slides to show you. And I like to also share stories of people and photos along the way. Who am I? If you don't know who I am, my name is Audra Slinkey. I'm president of the Home Staging Resource. As Diana said, I started that in 2006. But the thing that I absolutely love is helping people who have a passion for design make money doing what they love. And if you ever see this logo, that's my staging training. I have a color training, an e-design training, and I've most recently launched a vacation rental design training. So that's kind of what this workshop is based on. It's a finalist now for the Innovative Product of the Year. So I'm super excited to see if it wins at the RESA convention. So if any of you on the line have ever worked with me, thanks so much for being here. You guys know I always get nervous doing this. So thanks for chiming in. All right. I also have my own Airbnb, so I'm no stranger to it. I've designed my own on lakes, in the mountains, and I also interviewed all the top stagers and designers who are actually actively doing this kind of niche to see kind of what works for them marketing wise, what pricing wise, to try and keep it simple. Who are the best clients to work with, how to approach them, and those are the things we're going to talk about in this workshop as well. So you're going to see their stories, you're going to see examples of their work, and you're also going to see examples of what's inside that course, because I show you kind of, oh, here's how I price it, here's what I recommend you use for a lead magnet, whatever. So if you're seeing these things, it's because it's what's inside there. I have to just show. I'm more of a shower than just a teller. All right, so let's start from the beginning. Why Airbnb? It's really the epitome of the sharing economy. We all know that it's had huge growth post-COVID, but it's been growing massively since 2008. And a strange statistic that a lot of people don't know is 14,000 hosts are joining Airbnb each month. In fact, a certain amount of real estate properties that are sold every month go straight to Airbnbs. They're bought by investors, going straight to become an Airbnb. This is creating a lot of competition, interestingly. Anybody can be basically a hotel owner, and Airbnb rentals have grown 1,000%. How many of you in this Facebook group or wherever you're watching from have an Airbnb or have design Airbnbs? I'd love to know. Maybe share a comment in there for everybody to kind of see. The interesting thing that what drives the Airbnb, though, just some statistics, is the millennial generation. So their growth has been propelled by a lot of factors, but the popularity among the millennial travelers, those are people defined between 18 and 35 years of age. They're the largest generation in history. And by 2025, those millennials and the Gen Z, the younger generations, those are basically my kids, will be accounting for 75% of all consumers and travelers. So why is this important to you? It's kind of, who are we designing for? So it's kind of a different market, different than whether we're designing for baby boomers or millennials, but it's a different kind of design. And you've all seen it when you go onto the Airbnb website. If you haven't been on it, there's boats, there's castles, you can pretty much rent anything. So statistically, travel is deeply important to that generation. They prioritize travel over even buying a home. Statistically, I'm not going to show you all the statistics because I got a lot to go through, but just trust me on that one. And they love experiences, and over 60% of the bookings, today are done actually by millennials. So why is the staging of an Airbnb or the design so important? Well, a couple things that are kind of colliding right now. It's been important for years. We all know this. In fact, a lot of you I know have probably said you're already doing it. I've seen massive growth with my own design and staging membership at the Home Staging Resource over the last few years, where they're just getting jobs left and right doing Airbnb design, just kind of falling in their lap. The thing is because this massive growth, all these new Airbnbs entering into the market, means it's getting very competitive now. It used to be they could list their Airbnb, 3 years ago, and it would stay occupied. Not so anymore. It's becoming harder and harder for certain Airbnbs to stand out. It's not enough now for them to just simply list the rental. It has to actually speak to the target guest, the target demographic, and stand out in a crowded space. For those of you who are stagers, who have been staging since, I have, 2004, does this sound familiar? In the early 2000s, people didn't know what staging was. They'd throw their house on the market, didn't think they had to design it to sell it. And nowadays it's completely changed. Well, it's very similar, which kind of excites me for us designers, because it is all about those photos. It's about the description. Hosts lose money when the property is not occupied. And consequently, they can raise their prices when the rental is dialed in. It's really simple economics, similar to staging. It's good design is an investment in their long-term, wealth. And it's almost like, I like to compare it even to like solar. You spend money on solar now, but you're saving on your electric bill. Well, spend money on good design and quality furnishings now, and you're going to save in the long run. So why does this affect you? Why you can rock it? In highly competitive markets, to me, it's like staging on steroids. And it's really easy just to add to your current design services. You're already doing design. You're already doing staging. Add this to your menu of services. But the thing that really excites my members, people that I know that do this, is it's business to business. It's more money technically, because those real estate investors, those property managers, that's the kind of the business to business that you would be possibly working with. Builders, they're not flinching as much, and there's a lot less emotion involved in the process. And I know for a lot of you who have dealt with emotional design clients, you know exactly what I mean, right? And it's also just justifiable spending. It's not a luxury service. So for those designers who have been around as long as I have, since the early 2000s, you've seen kind of the ebb and flow of your business depending on, as a luxury service. Design is kind of considered a luxury service, where this is not as much. So similar to staging, it's a little bit more economy proof. People know when they put their investment on the property to get Superhost designation, they need good reviews. They need people to love it. It needs to have all of the amenities that people want. So similar to the seller, it's really hard for hosts to be objective. Not everyone's great at design like we are, right? Why else? Well, very few designers and stagers are actually actively tackling this growing market. And you may say, well, I know some people that do. They don't actively have a separate page on their website that say, this is what we do. Here are our Airbnb design packages with search engine optimization. So I'd be curious. I mean, I can't really see the comments, but how many of you do have a separate page on your website for Airbnb design? Just curious. Even rare are the ones that are actively pursuing and marketing to those business partners that could feed them business over and over again. They're easy to find, and they are looking for specialists who make them look good. Ultimately, they need you. So it's a really win-win for everyone. And this is one reason I love this industry. Speaking of kind of that business to business, here's a story. Trisha, she took my staging training years ago, but she teamed up with a mortgage company. Now, I wouldn't have even thought a mortgage company would have a kind of an Airbnb designer, but they do. So she handles all their Airbnbs in Orlando, Florida. So that was another market that I was like, wow. So, and I'm going to walk you through process. Obviously, what I recommend with Airbnb design, this is where Design Files comes in, is concept board to room. And that is kind of what she does in a budget bedroom. So why this service will benefit you. Again, you're expanding your services to the lucrative and open design market. You potentially can make a whole lot more money on each project. And when I talked about those repeat, clients, those businesses, those real estate investors, super hosts, most hosts like myself own more than one property. You can do it even remotely using design files. I don't recommend you do that at first. Start with your local area. We're going to talk about that. Airbnb property managers. Surely all of you have in your area Airbnb property managers that you can speak to. Mortgage companies, I said, title companies, and even I've seen a lot of people get leads from Airbnb house cleaners who, love it. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of hit different markets and get that repeat business. It's less about budget. It's more about investment, which I mentioned. And the one thing that's really important to think about when you think about Airbnbs is the quality of furnishings and speaking to the quality of furnishings. And that's different than the staging, right? Because people, they're getting a lot of use. It's guest use. So quality extends the lifespan and thus saves them money. But the fun thing that most of my designers that I talk to love about it is the ability to brand, to get a little crazy and go find that demographic and have a little bit of fun. Lindsay Machado here's her story. She did a short-term rental and she kind of put it best. She's just like, it's an out of the box experience. She's all about creating experiences versus just straight design. So you can have a little bit more fun. There's not as much pressure because they don't have the same personal connection as an owner. They get it that it's a business, and it enables her as a designer to spread her wings with unique designs. Here she did. This is the before photo. And this was a Big Bear cabin. And here's the after. So you have to talk about, that was an Airbnb before, probably not getting a lot of occupancy rates. And now it's after. Here's the before and here's the after. Those photos really matter, the positioning, everything else. Now in this particular Airbnb, which I thought was kind of fun, they did an ode to the late great painter, Bob Ross. So they had that as their theme. So they included kind of the rustic theme, but they also did Bob Ross coasters and even had a Bob Ross replica painting in the master suite. So it's just kind of fun. You could get a little crazy. Here's the master suite before, and here's the after. And you have to think about those Instagrammable, spaces. And that's kind of the important, like the wallpapered wall, think about the photographical spaces. These are millennials a lot of times that you're designing for, and the Gen Z. And what do they do when they travel? They take a lot of fun photos. So they will take photos, design for millennial use, many layers, surprise and delight your guest with unexpected touches. That is what they're looking for. Little simple things. And it really is in the details. This is Leah Drager's. This was an entryway that she did. It's kind of crazy, but fun. Obviously, they made it for kind of photographable spaces. Leah actually was an Airbnb host, and she started getting requests for design, and her business has completely blown up. She actually travels the country, and she does obviously the remote concept board. I'm going to show you. And then She travels to the place for install, or sometimes just gives them the concept board to shop direct. So she's been to Vegas, Tennessee, New York, Palm Desert, absolutely loving it. I mean, travel's not for everybody, but I kind of love that she does it. Here is some of her work. So you can see she just gets a little crazy. And she, for those of you who are more maximalist designers, this really speaks to you. Here's the before photo, Airbnb. Now, do you think this one's going to get a lot of occupancy rates, or do you think this one is going to stand out? Yeah. In the comments, feel free to comment on that. It's kind of crazy and kind of fun, but she knows what will be photographable, what will stand out. Here's the Airbnb before. Here's the after. And she just gets a little crazy, but she does it on a budget. You can see she's still working in their budget with the paneling and whatnot. Here's one that she did near Disney World, and I thought it was so cute. Can you guess the theme of the room? Yeah, it's Peter Pan. So she did the Neverland, map, rug, little tree, little signage, and the mural on the wall. So how cute. I mean, what little kid is not going to want to stay in this house versus just the average plain Jane house? So let's talk about you. Let's talk about how you get started. I always say, recommend start going to your area, start locally. Everybody has Airbnbs and vacation rentals locally. So it's not just Airbnb. You can go to vrbo.com and start really looking at the places near you and reviewing those listings critical. You're not contacting anyone off that listing. You cannot contact and sell yourself on Airbnb. You will get blackballed. So don't do that. I'm just talking about research. And what I always tell people to do is note the most and least expensive listings in the 3-bedroom area, because you'll see that there'll be $100 a night maybe and a $600 a night listing, all 3-bedroom, able to sleep, 8 people. And you'll be able to quickly see the difference between the two. How do they compare? Is the least expensive just trying to compete on price alone? That is a losing proposition for them. And Airbnb hosts are realizing that really quickly. They've got to compete on value and amenities. And it's, I have to share this statistic because 97% of all of us travelers say that those amenities actually impact our travel experience. Those are really important to us. And sometimes they're just simple things like having a fully stocked kitchen. I mean, how many of you have been to an Airbnb that doesn't even have a stocked kitchen? That's super disappointing. That's going to leave a bad review. But also thoughtfulness being second, a bottle of wine, a bicycle to get around, a beach bag already packed. Those are the things that people now are looking for, and it's just getting more and more competitive, which is exciting for us. So learning your demographic market and designing for the different investment levels. A luxury rental that's $1,000 a night fee has or kind of attracts the kind of guest that has an expectation. They don't expect to see, Target or Amazon or Wayfair necessarily furnishings in that home, right? They have an expectation. So understanding that with that, and this is similar to staging when you're doing vacant luxury homes versus low, and even similar to design, depending on your client. And also just understanding everything that goes into an Airbnb. I have a little giveaway for you. There's something that I have in my training I'm going to show you. It is a Airbnb inventory checklist. Like there's a lot that you need to completely furnish an Airbnb. And a lot of people forget things. Those are those amenities that people will be mad if they don't have. But I recommend that you not only have a list like that you can give to your clients, you can create and give, but also become an Amazon affiliate, because a lot of those renewable things, you can have a link to your site and make money off what they purchase from you. And then also we're going to talk about trade income streams with Side Door, who I know is going to be speaking tomorrow, who I love. And it allows you to create those kind of shops or collections on your website. This is what is a freebie I'm going to give you. It's a vacation rental inventory checklist. It's a Canva template that I do give in my training, but at least it'll give you a whole grouping of everything that you need to furnish an Airbnb. And what I recommend is you have, just for the home essentials, a lot of things that people forget. There I have on my site is an Amazon checklist so people can link back and just a little extra money. Yes, it's a little work to set up. You don't have to do it, but it is kind of nice, especially if you're working with a lot of clients or you're giving this away. This is a lead magnet. And I know you guys learned about that yesterday. It's an example lead magnet for Airbnb design. So creating something like this as one lead magnet to attract clients, give it to them, and then email follow-up sequence to your Amazon list. But we'll talk about marketing in just a bit. So spending on the important stuff. This is where I think some people do get it wrong. You're going to want to mix low and high cost furnishings for a luxurious look. You can't skimp on the fabrics, on the couches, high performance fabrics, slip covered. You need a couch. I mean, you don't want a couch that you're going to be replacing. The last thing your real estate investors want is to be replacing items and furniture. And that's kind of the rinky dink little nitpick stuff that they're always having to, they don't want to have to do that. They want something that's going to last and that will look more luxe. So sturdy furniture, not assembled. That's a lot of things I see where people get wrong, where they buy from Wayfair or Amazon, and then they have to spend time assembling it. And that's time they're billing to the client that client could have just purchased a better piece of furniture. So watch yourself on that. I know it's easy to just go bottom line budget, but they still have to pay for the assembly. So don't buy assembled stuff if you can avoid it. Go luxe on bedding and splurge on statement pieces like art, things like that will go a long way. You can save, obviously, on pillows, decor, rugs, because those will be replaced, and kitchen stocking items. I always also recommend you use Amazon, not like Home Goods or any of that for those stocking items, because that way, when those 3 coffee cups get broken, it's really easy to replace the same coffee cups rather than having to replace the whole set. So just little tips like that. Also, Amazon has great bedding basics, again, that you can have on your site that they can just purchase direct. Like mattress covers, pillow covers, you're going to need to cover everything. So how to get started, you have to know your numbers, right? Because you're creating a design plan. I always recommend, when you're starting out a project with the client, it's usually starting fresh with an empty property. Perhaps you are, then you create the design plan and design files, and you got to know the numbers. You have to know if the arm of that couch is, 36 inches, that side table, you don't want to be taller, shorter or taller, minus 2 inches. So just things like that, the ability to do floor plans. This is where Design Files is great at. One little tool, of course, I have to mention to you that I love is Canvas.io. It's a free app for your clients. I'd be curious in Facebook, has anyone ever used Canvas.io for their clients? I'm going to show you how it works. You still need, it does the measurements. It creates a whole 3D of your client's space. So even if you're working remotely with a client, they can scan their room and it gives a whole 3D. I'm going to show you. And you still need your client to triple check the measurements though. So here, hopefully this works for you guys. I don't know if StreamYard will get it, but here's what this app looks like. And here's a room that a client scanned. It's the complete 3D of the room. They give you the link, and then you're able to completely see not just that room, but rooms even beyond it. There's the dining area, kitchen, and even the entry. So it's a pretty cool app, and it's free. So who doesn't love that? Write that down, canvas.io. All right, how else? I know you guys know how to shop. So let's, you need to know when to shop trade. I recommend mixing trade, making money off the trade, obviously. If you're just giving them the design plan and they want to budget and shop direct, that's where Side Door comes in. You'll hear more about them tomorrow, because Side Door gives you the ability to provide trade product that you make money on that the clients shop directly for. And that's what I love about that. But if you're doing the full purchase and install, you need to really think about speed of purchase. This is very different than our designers. We're not doing custom work here. So it's not custom, it's not cheap, it's all the in-betweens. And we need to do fast delivery, because your real estate investors, your property managers, the more that sits empty, unoccupied, if it's a property they just purchased, they're losing money. So I recommend incorporating both retail and trade. It's, easier and using those concept boards, design files for more efficient design, building trust, easier upselling. It sets the expectations and the client communication. So what do I mean by that? Well, here's an example of my favorite, Mitchell, Beige, and Luis. Here's me with them at RISA. He does a lot of Airbnb design in Galveston, Texas. And he actually got a job from an agent because he started in staging. He took my staging training and then now is doing a lot of just design work. The agent, of course, sold the home to an investor, and the investor needed it, soup to nuts designed. So what did he do? Well, he created the concept for the client. Here's the living room. And then he does the full install. But you could see, do you think that client had a pretty good idea of what that room would look like based on the concept board? Absolutely. So it gives the client enough of a vision and to just say, go ahead. And that's the trust factor. That's where putting these, plans together ahead of time really helps. So you can see, here's the kids' room. I love it. Here's the master board, and then there it is as the install. So there's really no surprises, and that's the beauty of combining DesignFiles, the concept board, with your shopping. Now in this case, I have this is kind of a concept board. I recommend, if you're mixing or if the client is going to possibly shop, that you use the collections inside door. Now, you'll hear more about that, like I said, tomorrow, but here's an example of a collection. Now, if you're going to create a collection on side door, I recommend you mix those products into DesignFiles to create the header, which you can do on side door. So here's the page on my site. There's the header. That's the DesignFiles where I put the products in, but I'm giving the client choices in the collection. Because if they didn't like that one lamp, all of us have experienced a client who's like, I love it, but I just don't like that one chair. Well, great. I'm going to give them a couple choices that I know will all work within the space. So you can see that the client can scroll, shop direct, there's that artwork, and change up art, change up lamps, and even work within their budget. So they're creating their own budget, and shopping direct on side door is just another way, another income stream for you if you have a client that you're not doing an install or you have a remote client. So I think you kind of get how that works, but I love it. And it's not hard to just create these collections and go a little crazy, right? I know most of you have already done that. By the way, Mitch made over 20,000 profit on that one house. So when I say that there's money to be made, there absolutely is. So you, as the stager and designer right now, I recommend you're going to add this service. You're going to have a separate page. You're going to use all the search engine optimized keywords, Airbnb design, vacation rental design. And you're going to also put those keywords on your house profile, your Yelp profile, your Angie's List, whatever profile you have as a service that you offer. Because remember, keywords do matter. And like I said, very few people are doing this from a marketing standpoint. And align your service, your Airbnb design service, really the same as your design service. It's not really that far off. The designer does the concept board, then they do the install. Or they just do the install. But the concept board really helps when you're working with investors who are just signing off. Just know that speed and efficiency is critical. Have an onboarding process. I know I don't need to say this, but because I'm hoping you all do, that breeds professionalism, expertise, and credibility, especially for my new stagers and designers. That's really the challenge. You have to look the part and you have to speak to the client's benefits. So when I say an onboarding process, I recommend that you speak to the client's success path. So this is one thing I have kind of in all my trainings, but it's a good thing to create. You can easily create this in Canva, but here's the success path that we're going to go through. The client is going to fill out a contact form on your site. They're going to review your investment guide. I'll show you an example of investment guide I recommend you can create yourself in Canva and make you look good. Then they'll schedule a call. After the call, you'll have a consultation, then the design plan signed off, approved, order, install, and then always that success path leading to what the client ultimately wants, and that is better occupancy rates, higher prices, and repeat and rave guests. So it's good to just show them that. So you could easily create this sort of kind of contact form on your website. Here's an example of one. I used Honeybook to create this. I know a lot of you use Acuity or, whatever. Honeybook is a project management system that I absolutely love. But it's really easy because the client can just pick their service, and it's kind of also a little bit of a lead magnet, because I tell them, hey, if you want to quote and you want to get a price and package guide that fits kind of your home and style, just fill out these quick questions. I keep it very short and simple. But I also make sure you have a link that they can schedule their free call with you, because if they just want to quickly talk to you, then always make that available to them. And then, of course, in the call, you want to ask all the right questions about the rental. That's an example of the intake form that I recommend you use. And then here's an example of the Canva template investment guide for Airbnb design that you can easily go to canva.com. This is where we created this. This is in my training as a template. First page is about you. You've got to make it personal. Or actually, first page is about statistics about Airbnb design, because there's a lot of them. And then the second page is about you, making it personal, your team, your portfolio, and then what makes you different. So make sure you list those design differences. And then also add in the statistical benefits. You might want to take a photo of this. There's actually statistics. According to Airbnb, a well-designed space earns 2.5 times more revenue than those who did not. Imagine that, 2.5 times. So very justifiable when I say income. Then you have who are you working with and what service that you offer that benefits them. Always have calls to action. FAQs, I think, are important in your investment guide. What do these FAQs do? They sell you, but they also kind of eliminate any objections that they might have. You'll recognize this, their success path. It's kind of another sales page, and then their price point. So if they filled out that form and then they read my investment guide and scheduled a discovery call, do you think I need to sell myself in that discovery call with that kind of pre-qualifying? I'll just be curious. No. So imagine only spending time on the phone with qualified prospects who know my process, they know my pricing, and they are my ideal clients. How would it feel to not have to sell? So having kind of that pre-qualification process, eliminating kind of the tire kickers. And I know that kind of makes a lot of people uncomfortable because they just want to be the yes person to every single client. But I'm here to tell you, you don't have to be for this kind of service. It's a specialty service. It's unique. And you also have to step back and say, if they were trying to get bids and they also contacted another designer who didn't give them anything even close to looking like that, but let's say your price was a little higher, who do you think they're going to pay for? Because image does matter. You have to look the part. So I recommend an automated system. You can use Honeybook. You can do that. The form guides them to the correct fit. It saves you tons of call time. Instead of selling, you're exploring, which is what all of us want to do. We're not salespeople. And it also helps you to pre-qualify. If they're not in your price range, we don't want to spend time on the phone with them. If they can't be bothered with a simple form, I don't think they're really a client fit. But most importantly, it allows you to position as the specialist in credibility and professionalism, and it absolutely will separate you from the pack. How many of you in the Facebook, I'm curious, have a process exactly like this, where you do that kind of investment guide? Because that's where, to me, where a lot of us go wrong. I've spoken on that. I spoke on systems in the last recent convention, and very out of the hundreds of people that were watching, maybe not even 10% raise their hand. So that's why we're spinning our wheels a lot. So I know I digress a little bit, but having that credible process is what will help you easily sell this service. You need to understand that this is a unique market. You are a specialist in it. So capitalizing on that and speaking to the target market's needs, but also connecting your pricing. We're going to talk about that on product costs and the benefits of quality. So how many of you have worked with clients who say they want a restoration hardware look, but they really have a Walmart budget? Yeah, I mean, we all have, right? And it's not their fault necessarily. They just don't know how much things cost. So I don't know if you have this for your clients. I'd be curious if you do, but I think it's important to create kind of that budget guide. It's just an educational budget guide. I have it in a spreadsheet, but I also have it as a lead magnet in the training that you can create. So it's another way to get kind of Airbnb hosts and leads, vacation rental, furniture, and decor budget guide. And it lets them know, what things cost. They don't realize things add up. And it'll say, here's your IKEA Amazon, but it needs assembly. Here's your mid-tier kind of local furniture store, Pottery Barn, CB2. So it's just price. And a lot of times I think we assume they should understand the price of everything, but they really don't. So educating them on the direct relationship between budget and guest expectation and price, rental price is important. I mentioned that the guest that's paying $1,000 a night or $500 a night has an expectation of furnishings and quality. They live in that expectation. They have probably a multi-million-dollar home. So kind of connecting that. And I see a lot of designers, they think there's a lot of competition, so they don't price as competitively as they should, this type of specialty service. So you can go higher. And also making sure you educate a client on timeline, because that is an essential difference in Airbnb. The timeline is a little different. I talked about that success path, but when we talk about it in the form of a timeline, this is kind of a Canva template, again, that you can easily kind of create where, from the property assessment to the sourcing and the design plan and the client presentation. Your design boards are your client presentation, to when you give it and you get client approval. By the time you're ordering, inspecting, and it's important that you mention you're doing all this, because they don't realize all the back work that goes into this. It's at least 3 to 5 weeks. Again, photograph ready. So mentioning those things, it's so important that we educate them. So here's other areas I think a lot of times we get it wrong: not separately packaging or stair-stepping our pricing, because obviously we can serve most all Airbnb hosts. It doesn't have to be the $1,000 a night. It could even be the $100 a night, because they do understand this is an investment in their future income, and they all can afford it if they own a separate property. Trying to price like a designer instead of packaging like an expert. So packaging in relationship to furnishing quality and price, and this is the way I recommend you price and package. It allows a client to value up or down. So if it is a client that has that expensive, they want to get that really high nightly rate, well, we're going to scale up on those furnishings. And so this is an example of kind of a price point that I have in my training. This is for turnkey, and it's for an empty, clean, already remodeled Airbnb, which a lot of them kind of come out as. So I'm just giving you an example of packaging, and it's just the photographable spaces. So this doesn't include a stocked kitchen or outdoor furniture, that obviously those are priced differently, but it's all the photographable interior spaces. Then you see I'm packaging it on according to the furnishing level. So they can value up, they can value down, but it's very keenly connected. And the reason why we do that is we're educating as we're going. Now, also, before you think, okay, great, it's that price for my area, I also do have a formula for certain areas across the country that slide those dollars up or down, because there's obviously a huge difference whether you live in Newport, California versus Shreveport, Louisiana, in terms of your price point and so on. So don't take that photo. I know a lot of people go, pricing. I'm doing a pricing workshop next week on that, but don't do that, because it does depend on your area as well, but it's close to those prices, how I recommend you package. Why do I recommend you package? Before people start going, no way, I got to make sure I'm getting paid for my time, what have you. You are working within a budget that gives you a lot of wiggle room when you're doing the square footage. I talked about that $21 for, let's say, a square foot. If it's a 2,000 square foot place, you're making over 40,000, and that includes all the furnishings and your time. You can easily do a 2,000 square foot place within, and that 40,000 was kind of budget stuff. You can easily work within that budget. Most people can. It doesn't include windows. I know a lot of people are going to ask that. You're clear and confident. So why do I show you kind of why to package? You're clear and you're confident on pricing. Thus you're credible. Remember, I mentioned a lot of times you're working business to business. You're working with builders. You're working with real estate investors. Ideally, your marketing strategy, when I get to that, is really targeting those kind of people. Airbnb property managers. You want to kind of target that high end. So when you come across it, this is what it takes. You're pricing and positioning on authority, and you're connecting the luxury and the scale, the size of the place, right? A 4,000 square foot place, the scale needs to be larger. That means we need to spend more on those larger furnishings. But what I love it is that you've kept it simple for the client, and you've allowed the client to also value down. So the value down client who has the lesser, hey, go creative, go cheaper. They can still do that and afford you. And you're also able to screen out the looky-loos, which I also like, while making them think, wow, this designer really knows this market, versus the other designer who's like, I'm just going to keep a timesheet and bill you along the way and maybe charge you for and you can still go that route. I want you to liken it to your services, but you have to remember, I I like it when you can come across and people aren't questioning, your specialty and authority and credibility. And again, connecting the cost with the scale and the luxury, which so many of us do not do in our pricing, because you're educating while bidding on the process, and you're still using that sliding scale. And just make sure that if you are doing that, that your furnishings really do look the part. If they are going up to the trade level where they want everything trade, CB2, Pottery Barn, the deliverables need to look the part. All right. So obviously you align it to your business still. If you want to add this, you can easily do that, but consider the packaging route. And also, consider the saying no to the wrong client, because I do see a lot of people make mistakes on that. Understanding it is a specialty service, and you now can become the specialist on it. And once you become the specialist, it makes you better than the designer or average stager next door who is not. And the most important thing to fill that pipeline, for those of you who are cringing at a contact form or a click to call, is you got to constantly fill your pipeline, your marketing pipeline. What does that look like? Here we go. Target real estate investors, Airbnb property managers, repeat markets. I have some stagers and designers, they just work with one or two, and that keeps them busy. So knowing, it's easy to find them. There are associations. You can just look them up on Yelp, by the way. And speaking to their pain. So Airbnb property managers, what is their pain right now? Well, they have a bunch of unhappy clients because their places aren't as occupied as they used to be, right? I mentioned the competition. So how can they respond to that client? Well, client, it's getting harder and harder to compete in the Airbnb market, but you can still do so. Your property has a lot of potential. It just needs a better, well-designed space. So we can help them communicate that and deal with that. So I recommend, also you can do some advertising, that systemized approach that gives them value, build your credibility. And when I mentioned that, create your vacation rental critical inventory checklist. You're going to get an example of one here. So you can create your own on Canva. These are just some that I recommend. Create your furniture and budget guide. What are these? These are lead magnets for Airbnb. So they're easy lead magnets for Airbnb that appeal to the real estate investor. They appeal to the vacation rental manager. Even your investment guide does. So these are kind of 3 kind of Canva lead magnets that we have in the training. And here's an example of how you could use it. Obviously, I think going direct to your ideal clients is the easiest way to get that business. But you can also run a Facebook ad. Here's a Facebook ad I run where I'm actually doing the vacation rental design essentials. And one thing I like about Facebook is it's super measurable. You can run a location targeted Facebook ad, so keep it local. You can even target, and I recommend you actually use a specialist when it comes to ads. I know people try and do this themselves. I do not do ads myself. I hire people. They are well worth their price in gold, because they should be able to measure how much you spend. I'll show you. So they'll know who to target, how to target them. They can even create the ad for you. The goal is you have that ad to a page on your site, right? That gives them, for their email address, they get the guide, or they get the budget guide, or they get whatever lead magnet you want to use. And then you have your email sequence that follows up, gives them more credibility, gives them more tips, talks about the demographic for your area, be the expert. Then you run another Facebook ad retargeting those same people who already got that guide. So they see your face everywhere. That's the beauty of Facebook. It just knows where everybody goes. And the thing when I call measurable ROAS, what are ROAS when it comes to Facebook ads? I know when I run my Facebook ads, if I spend $500 on Facebook ads, I know exactly how much money I'm going to make from that $500. I know, and I was going to ask you, if you spend $500 on ads and you were to get $20,000 in billing, would that be worth it to you? And Facebook will tell you. You'll know, because they have a very measurable way when you have a professional set it up. So this is just one example of marketing, but obviously just going direct, speaking directly to the Airbnb property managers, going to the associations. I had some members, they took their concept boards that they created. They hadn't even actually had a job, but they created a beautiful DesignFiles concept board for Airbnb for their area. And then they took it to the investor association. The investors had told her, no, I already work with an Airbnb designer. And she said, well, is she doing things like this for you where you get to see the design ahead of time? And he's like, no. And guess who got the job? So, selling yourself, selling your process, standing out. Anyway, so I'll take questions now, but I do want to say I do have, similar to the other speakers, I do have a coupon code on my training, a 48-hour, using the coupon code DesignFiles.com. And I do have one on my eDesign training too, because I know a lot of you were looking for that, where you get all my 100 templates inside your Design Files account when you take the training. And that's $50. Thank you.
Yay!
Sorry, I went long. I was trying to go fast.
That was jam-packed. That was great. Got lots of wonderful feedback in the comments saying how they loved it. And some people that weren't considering this as a niche are now definitely considering it. So yes, thank you so very much. I'm just going to dive in and start pulling some questions. So here's one. How are you getting high quality furnishings, especially sofa and chairs, made and delivered in just 3 to 5 weeks? How's that work?
Yeah, well, you guys, there's a lot of sources there. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys are going to Las Vegas market. I'm going there. Hopefully I'll see some of you there in a couple of weeks. But a lot of those vendors are able to do that. They get the quick turnaround time. And also, I mean, if you have to go to your local living spaces or a furniture store to get that, 3 to 5 weeks is reasonable. Now, you can extend that, certain. But once you start doing this, your timeline can shorten, because you'll get that's super important to real estate investors. Once they sign off, you get all the funds up front. It's time to start ordering, and you also have already sourced it. Remember, the 3 to 5 weeks is after you've sourced and created that design plan. So you know that item is available, and then the sign off, and then it's ordered. But sometimes things happen, but that's why the timeline's important to mention.
Makes sense.
But even Sidora will tell you how quickly those things can come. Sidora will, says.
Right. And then we got a couple of questions about Facebook ads.
Yeah.
Obviously, you might not have a specific person that you're able to recommend.
Go to Fiverr.com or Upwork and just start looking at their ads. Find your person if they know how to create good ads. You want it very measurable. You want them to be able to put the pixel on your site. It's a little trial and error, but I mean, my Facebook ad person's been always worth their weight in gold. And yeah, you're going to spend a little bit, but Fiverr, you won't spend as much, and they'll guide you through, and you'll get the whole dashboard. You'll be able to see, how many people are coming through, test out different lead magnets. That's why in my training, I have a couple different ones. You got to appeal to different people. I mean, that's just one way to start filling your pipeline. But and it's not Facebook, it's also Instagram, you guys. Instagram is where a lot of your people are.
Right. And it allows you to layer like the location plus the interest. So you can target people who
it's going to be very targeted. Very targeted. I mean, ideally, you're just go and look at your property managers, your Airbnb property managers in your area. I mean, that's an easy search.
Yeah. You can also cold email and cold call.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's business to business.
Oh, absolutely. And it's something they won't have considered. I'm telling you, I'm so busy with the training, but I've worked even with other property managers who are like, oh, do you do Airbnb design? I need somebody. I mean, I run into that and I'm like, no, it's our, we have a directory.
Right. So can you give some advice on like flat rates for mood boards?
Yeah, okay. So how much you charge if they want a mood board with Sidora product links, but no install service? Yeah, I mean, I say an easy round number when you're just getting started. Well, see, this is tricky because in my eDesign course, I have like 100 different templates already created in people's accounts. So it's a little quicker for them to come up with concept boards. But your time. It's going to take you about, I mean, if you get good at it, I'm pretty good at it. It takes me about 3 hours to create a concept. So do your hourly. What is 3 hours of your time at least worth? And then also just the pre-talk and before talk. It's usually about 500 a room. Is a nice little round number. So usually if they go like whole, 500 a room, all the main areas. So if they do a whole home, it's probably going to be about 2,500. And then you're making money on the product, which I do like as well. Just making sure your time's paid for. Your time. What's your hourly at that point?
Absolutely. Let's see. Okay, you hit on this a bit, if people like only kind of talking with people that are, the right fit, but could you chat a little bit about your thoughts on just getting your prices out there?
Yeah, as you can see from the way I train with all of my products, I believe in total price transparency. I have a whole thing on pricing. I don't believe your price should be your expenses, because that's not, your client doesn't care about your expenses. You better keep your expenses low and you have to compete. But I never believe you should be the low price person. You've got to compete on authority and image and position. And you can do that on a beautiful website, obviously. And absolutely, you can put your prices on your website. If your competitors are not doing it, why not? But I also like the idea, like I said, of an investment guide that's kind of tailored towards the client. And that's what you saw. Or give me your email, tell me what you need, and there is a price guide for you that's a little more detailed for bigger jobs. But for a consultation, absolutely have your price point on there.
Mm-hmm. This leads us to our next question. We got a couple questions about just trying to understand how the budget guide is given, or the investment guide is given, when is it free, that sort of thing. So maybe just for people who aren't familiar with it, if you could just like kind of take a step back and kind of.
So I like to create, obviously those things are created, they're in the training, and they're ways for you to add value and position on authority. And so let's say this is called, hopefully you all have a good email system. So if a client on that Facebook ad got my inventory checklist, you saw that, then I might do a welcome email like, hey, great, this is what I do. I might showcase a job, local job. And then the next email I might be, the thing is, it's all about, budget and price. And then I might give them my budget guide, right? So you have this, never let your clients go. It takes them 7 emails at least before they're probably going to purchase from you. So by the time they've reached out, or before they're going to click and schedule a call with you, you have to convince them. And so give them good value, give them tips. And there's so much we can talk about, right? With Airbnb design. And you can speak from that authority, statistics, all that good stuff, which I kind of showcased here. And it's in your drip system. So I would give that in your email drip system.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
They are sold. By the time they're going to talk to you, it's like, where do I sign?
Yeah, absolutely. So this question is getting a little outside of, e-design and into full service design, but we've got a couple similar to this. So I figure we'll dive into this. So how do you manage subcontractors for
That's
tasks?
not in the timeline. If you notice, the timeline is based on a clean, fully designed, house. Now I do have a separate, in the training, separate pricing for that. That's to get the home to where it needs to be. So how do you charge? I mean, personally, I don't recommend you manage subcontractors. I recommend you work with the contractor and take yourself out of that liability. Keep your business simple. But if you're already doing that as a designer, okay, I'm not going to tell you. If the designer, if this is what you already do, again, align it with your design service. But if you don't do that sort of work, do not put yourself in that sort of liability situation. If they're doing, of course, if it's painting, like carpentry, whatnot, most of my stagers, they work with people that already do it. And it's really just a matter of referring those vendors directly to the client, letting the client manage that. Now you can certainly step in at your consultation and hourly fee to help with finishes, paint choices. Those are color consultations, flooring choices. You can even do a site visit with them to pick out, slabs, certainly. And that's kind of your timesheet timeline that you would do just even as a designer.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. This one's kind of related. Product placement adjustment once something is set up. Thoughts on this?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's very similar to staging, where a lot of times the stagers will go in, it's a vacant staging, and or even an occupied, but they want to go in prior to the photographer and really face the chairs, dial it all in. Absolutely, you can offer that service. I mean, I don't know how many clients, we use it, but it's definitely, an hour beforehand. Certainly, those photos really matter.
Makes
I have
sense.
stagers who do like plant services where they bring in all these live plants for the photos, but then they take them out. You can, that's just, we want those photos to look good. And they're not going to come in and be like, where's my plant?
Right. Exactly. Okay. Thoughts on warehousing?
That is a good question. And ideally, you're able to work with your local freight, your local receiver, sorry. And that's a lot of times where a company like Sidor can come in, where you can work with the receiver if you're working with trade. As a lot of my stagers know, they use storage facilities sometimes when they're starting. They just rent a storage locker. Sometimes, or they use their own warehouses. So that's why, even for if you're a stager and you have a warehouse, that's why this service is kind of a no-brainer, because they already have the space. They can already, put the stuff. But yeah, a lot of times you're juggling timelines, and a lot of times the house itself. If the receiver is getting full and they say we need to do a delivery, then you're gonna do, half of it to the house, and then other. You're gonna need the key. You're gonna need to be able to get in.
Okay, this is not a question, it's kind of a comment, but I thought it was an interesting one to highlight that, what you've kind of covered here is like how short-term rental design is different, right? Like your vacation inventory checklist, which everybody can find in the pinned post, and also we'll send it out with the replay, that it's like you have to have these specific things that a vacation rental needs, and you also need to consider how the space is going to be maintained. So any thoughts?
You're going to take photos. So I recommend you have a book where you have the photo book for the cleaner. So here's what the room needs to look like. So the cleaner knows when they go in, this is what the space needs to look like. And they also know for inventory, because, if that art is gone and it's a new cleaner, we got to report that, right? Not that they steal, they don't, but you never know. So thank you for that comment. You're absolutely right. And as the owner of a cleaning turnover company, you are an ideal client for an Airbnb designer. I'm sure you know that, because you deal with so many, different Airbnbs that aren't, looking great.
Absolutely. So it looks like we have covered all of the questions here today.
Okay.
So maybe if you could just hop back. The only other thing was, some people were asking if your home staging course is the one that's the most relevant to the vacation rental design. So maybe you could just hop back to your code so people can see.
So at my website, homestagingresource.com, I have my home staging course. That is your business. If you don't have any design or staging business, that is your foundational business course on creating a successful staging and redesign business. And then I have shorter 3-day courses for color. If you want to add color consulting, Airbnb design, that's my vacation rental course. So that's the one that, with all these things that you've seen, that's that course. But that course kind of assumes that you're already kind of have a business in place. So it doesn't walk you through how to start a business or how to price for staging and redesign or deal with, but it does give you a lot on how to shop trade and all of that. And then my e-design too. So those were kind of shorter courses. The home staging course is a 3-week course. So it is a big daddy.
Love it. Awesome. And so just a reminder, her vacation inventory checklist is in the pinned post. You're going to get it via email along with this replay. And Audra, thank you so much for joining us. We got tons of positive feedback on this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
thank you, everybody.
Yeah. And guys, tomorrow is day 4 of eDesign Business Building Week. Sheila is going to take it away, and she'll be hosting Chad Smith from Sidor to help you learn how to get full service level commissions without having to manage orders and delivery. And she's also going to walk you guys through a streamlined project workflow to help you save time on each and every eDesign project. So we're getting lots and lots of thank yous in the chat. Thanks again, Audra. All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.